I wanted to end my life. So I was at the edge of the school rooftop. I wanted to jump off, but then something had stopped me. So something bigger than me stopped me and to ask me to get help. And I vaguely remember that a friend suggested counseling. So I didn't go out to other people that could potentially help because I know from my parents I wouldn't be able to get help from them because they are oftentimes telling me to be strong, to stay strong, to be a top performer.
Hello, Claire. How are you today?
I'm great. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Good. I am honored to have this conversation with you today. So, why don't you share with me why is speaking up against mental health stigma important to you?
Yeah, a little of background about me. I'm Claire Wu. I am a resilience and nervous system specialist. So I struggled with anxiety and depression when I was very young. And yeah, I've gone through domestic violence, abusive relationships, and toxic workplace, and up to a point where I really want to end my life. And at that point, I seek help. And I did get the help that I need, and that completely transformed me and that lead me to live a life that's more authentic, more grounded and aligned with who I actually am. And that's why I thought it was really important to break the stigma around mental challenges, mental difficulties, or any sufferings that anyone might have had. And it's just such a common it's when we say about mental challenges, a lot of it has to relate to trauma and those events that happen to us too fast, too soon, or too quickly. And it's important to seek help and be able to process it with the help from someone who's probably been through it or with the trained professionals.
I was listening to your response and you jogged something in me. When I was depressed and suicidal, I didn't see a way out of it. But once I healed, all of a sudden, I had this mission to help other people. And it sounds like that is something that is also important to you in your work. Tell me about how you were able to overcome your childhood anxiety and depression and suicide ideation to get to a point now where you help other people with their nervous system.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. I think anxiety and depression runs in my family, so it's passed down generational through my grandparents and to my parents, and my parents like subconsciously pass it down to us, and because I remember where I was a time where I was didn't have that anxiety or depression. That was before I was age 12, and after that I was constantly in this sort of performance environment to be expected to perform, expected to achieve certain targets. And if I hadn't, like my family and parents would treat me really badly. And that sort of formed that beliefs and thoughts around, I'll never be good enough, not lovable, anything I'm achieving is not right, I am useless and all of that. So my parents' dialect became my inner dialect, and that was the first thing that I realized was to be able to build awareness to that inner dialogue where you notice that you were talking harshly or criticizing or judging yourself. So the awareness was the first thing that I learned. And when I sought help, I was in physiotherapy school. So I was really lucky that I got to learn. So in our schools, we learn about the nervous system. We talk about how breath, how spinal movement, how eye movement actually can affect the nervous system. And that in a way, when I was training in my training, I was taught different types of exercises that I could access to this nerve, which now we all know it's called the vagus nerve. So I was taught to access to that, and that nerves could actually somewhat connect my body and my mind, and that could help me to calm down. Yeah, so that was a big change because I was be able to be more in my body. Prior to that, I was kind of dissociated the whole time, just floating above myself and seeing the people around me, or sometimes I shut down, I just hide under the bed and I wanted to stay away from people and to just hibernate. So in a way that connection of my body and with myself that really helps, and on top of it with the help of therapy, counseling, being able to look at my beliefs, shifting the beliefs that I have around myself. I'm not good enough, not lovable, I'm not smart enough, and all of that. And that has really helped. And then it was just so much component to it. On top of it, I think having the right community very much helps to co-regulate. So what it means is like I started to have, prior to that, I was pretty much alone and always being that hyper independent person. And then once I start healing, I looked for the groups in schools and in the wider community. I joined different clubs like piano club, drama club, and I've learned to communicate and to interact with people, and that has helped me regulate my own nervous system. When I'm very anxious or stressed, I get to have a group of people that I could actually go to and talk to. And I think that provides the sort of regulations, giving me the emotional strength and support that I needed. And that's how I developed the sort of a framework in the Reset and Thrive movement. So now I'm having this, looking at this movement to help people to heal from the body up, because I found that it's such a big impact on me, and then the mind down. Yeah, it's a sort of like a body first, focus on your nervous system, and then gradually, because when you focus on your nervous system, you're more connected, you're more grounded, and then that will help you to help you process and shift your thoughts and your beliefs.
I can relate to being disassociated with your body and how you feel. For a very long time, when I was in therapy, my therapist would always say, like, where do you feel it in your body? And I could never pinpoint where I felt it because I didn't even know to pause and search my body for where I was feeling whatever it was that I was feeling. That knowledge and awareness, like you said, it came much later in my healing journey. So I find it interesting that you too had that same experience. You also talk about awareness, seeking out for help. When you went to seek out for help the first time, was there any shame or any stigma that you experienced before you were able to say, okay, this is not working my way. Now it's time for me to call in professionals to help me with this? What was your process?
I think so when I was so I sought help when I was in schools, and it hasn't been easy because I think initially I'm that person who's read a lot of self-help and psychology book when I was younger, and I think on and off, like I did find some like help and support through those books. As I mentioned, I was hyper independent, but then the moment that I saw professional help, so that was I wanted to end my life. So I was at the edge of the school rooftop. I wanted to jump off, but then something had stopped me. So something bigger than me stopped me and to ask me to get help. And I vaguely remember that a friend suggested about this counseling in schools. So I didn't go out to other people that could potentially help, because I know from my parents I wouldn't be able to get help from them because they are oftentimes telling me to be strong, to stay strong, to be a top performer. And then from my classmates, I am also unsure that I was able to get help from there because I wasn't very close with any of them. And because I was this hyper independent, hyper achieving person, I wouldn't know how they would respond. So there was that fear around how people would perceive me, and also fear of what if I don't get what I needed. And because I was in the sort of, it's almost like when you have all these things that's happening in your life, you're on that channel of, you're in this channel of like this loneliness and this self struggle and self suffering channel. It was hard, but then I think it took to a point where I had to almost rock bottom to ask the help from the school counselor. And that's changed everything because they were very professional and they were compassionate, empathetic, and also they've seen many cases like this. It's like when they told me that this is quite common, particularly because I was in a medical school. So they was telling me this is very common among how people perceive themselves, and however the society has so shaped our beliefs and our thoughts around who we should be, what we should do, and how we should perform. So it has helped a lot. And since then, I I was lucky to be in community where people are openly talking about mental challenges. But yeah, I did do understand that because I still don't talk about it with my family because even though we all have depression, anxiety, it's like this trend running in my family. Yeah, I rarely talk about it with my family. So I think I was lucky in that sense, like there wasn't too much stigma around it when I saw help from the external world. But then within my family, there was a lot of stigma and shame around it. Obviously, I told my parents pretty later on that I have anxiety and depression. And even when I was not coming out, but when I was out there sharing my stories on the stage, on magazine, on podcasts and all that. And yeah, my parents, my father wasn't very approval of that. He was feeling that I'm shaming the family or telling the family story of the around the domestic violence and all the things that's happened in the family. In a way, I think it depends on the person and it depends on how the society and then the environment perceive those mental challenges as, yeah. And I believe we're quite lucky. I'm now in Australia. So I've lived in a few different countries, but now I'm in Australia, and Australia's really open about it, particularly around anxiety, because there's 1 in 4 Aussies have anxiety. That's like around 5 million people that've got anxiety. So it's not if I have anxiety, if I tell someone, then they're gonna worry or panic about it. But then again, it depends on the generation. I remember I was previously working for a health tech company. And when I just openly mentioned I have anxiety, and my manager wasn't really approval of that. He was a man in his 50s or 60s, and then he just think that it was not a great idea to openly share about your mental health story. So it varies a lot, and it varies on the location, the generation, the ethnicities, the background of the people that you're in. But again, it's all about finding your tribe and community that will support you in overcoming that.
Yeah, that kind of leads me to my next point because you talk a lot about your family, like where your depression and anxiety stem from, but not being able to get the support from your family. You would think that if your father or your mom have their own set of challenges with mental health, that they would be more understanding to their daughter who is suffering and going through a hard time. I can say when I was going through, I felt like I was all alone. I couldn't go to my mom to talk to her because she lives a stress-free and drama-free life. And for me to bring my baggage, if you will, to her, if I felt like I was bringing her down with all the heaviness that I was feeling. So I kept it from her. And she just didn't understand like what I was going through. So I can appreciate that. But what you said, which is I think even more important is to find your tribe, find people that you can identify with that maybe have the same challenges or even understand the challenges that you're going through if they don't face them themselves. It took me up into my 40s before I was able to find my tribe, and I'm so grateful for it. We talk about stigma on this show a lot, and it's because of the stigma that a lot of people remain small, they remain stuck, and they can't figure out how to get out of the situation that they're in because of the stigma. But I'm proud of you for being able to, even back when you were in university, being able to use your voice and to acknowledge that something wasn't right with you for you to get the support that you needed. And I'm happy that you're here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Christy.
So you talk about your framework and rest and revive. Is that what it's called?
Reset and thrive. Yeah, it's a movement that I'm creating. Yeah.
I was way off.
All right. It's all right.
Okay, so tell me about this framework that you created. Like, how does it work? What do you do? And how do people sign up?
So I started it because I think that was the path that I needed myself. So I think that I think with the framework, there are a few steps. There's around 6 steps in the framework, and it's about the start off with BC. So A is having awareness, building awareness around the nervous system. Usually I help my client have a full picture of understanding of the 6 states of the nervous system. So there's hot, cold, just right, and overwhelm. and in between the playful and stillness state. So it's to map out the nervous system in the different states in their career or in their life. And after that, the B. So B is a really broad. So there's a lot of ways to reset the nervous system. The really basic ones are through the breaths. So there are different breathing techniques to help shift the states to back to the just right state, because we all move between those states throughout time to time. So it's helping people to shift back. Breath is the starting point, but then under that there are other techniques and movements like the spinal movement, arm movement. There's a deep dive into the muscles, the fascias, the organs. So these three are where our emotional pain are stored. So it's again, it's in the body, but it's not just, I think breath is a good place to start, but then it's like deep dive into, like, for example, when we talk about shame and guilt, a lot of it is stored around the hip. So it's an understanding around that, the hip flexors, how we release it through, so like fascial stretching, through self massage, through active movement to release it. So we go through each part, and that part's where it gets a bit comprehensive, because there's so much emotions that we talk about. There's so many parts of the body. So there are like over hundreds of techniques. Obviously, we know the nervous system techniques are wide, but it's about doing what works. So out of that 100, we pull out like 20 that's going to work best for the person. And we map out a 30-day plan where people can implement that 20 in their day to day. So they know, oh, if today I shutting down, then okay, these are the tools that I'm go for. Or if today I'm really anxious, then this is the tool that I'm gonna implement. And it takes around five to 10 minutes. People can watch the video or listen to the audio on the go. The last one is about the C. It's about connection. It's about co-regulation, as I mentioned. Like we rub off on each other. My nervous system is going to affect you, and you are going to affect me. So it's important to be able to regulate yourself and regulate other people when you are with them. So it's important to build awareness of the other person, where their states are at, and how are you able to communicate and to influence them. So in there, we introduce different techniques to help people to communicate and to co-regulate with the other person. So yeah, those are the components, and it's all about integrating into day to day. You know, if we can able to be more in our body, not just in our mind, because a lot of time the people that I work with tend to think a lot. They're all very smart. They think a lot. They've achieved a lot, but then they're not oftentimes not in their body because they don't feel safe in their body. So a lot of time is to be in the body. So you reset, and then you thrive. So that's why I created the movement, just to help people to find themselves faster and to have more compassion, empathy towards themselves, and be able to find the aligned success in their lives.
Good. What are some of the results that people experience when they go through your program?
There are phenomenal changes. I have a few clients. Okay, this is a very interesting one. So I have one client, his name is Josh. He's a CEO in the health tech AI space. So he came to me with social anxiety. So the main issue that he was struggling with is connecting with people. So when he's meeting strangers, he's got all this headache and tension in his body. And he's spent like 10 years trying to resolve this with a lot of coaches, a lot of NLP practitioners. And then we worked together for about 3 months' time. And through his fascia, his muscles, his chakra, and all of that. So there's a bit of a spiritual component to it. And after that, he's like partying in the US with the investors. And then now he's like top 30 company in Southern California. And he's also got 550 hospitals waiting for his products. I think he went through that. He's now no longer having all these headaches and tension when he's like interacting with people. Obviously, he is still a continuous work. He's still had to implement the techniques and the tools in his day to day, but at least he's got something under his belt that he's able to utilize him. And there's another very interesting one, another client of mine. So I have another guy, but I work with men and women, but I have another male client. So he is a Fortune 500 engineer. He's very accomplished. And he came to me, he was a little bit depressed. He was already seeing therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists and all of that. He had a lot of like nightmares and flashbacks that he couldn't get rid of, and particularly so he wanted to start an ice cream project, but he had a lot of those nightmares and doubts and all of that. So we worked together again for a few months to help him to reset. And after that, he launched his ice cream truck on the Mother's Day. It was a great success. Who doesn't love ice cream? I love ice cream too. So it was a great success, and he found himself in doing what he loved. And the main thing is he no longer have nightmares and flashbacks. So actually it doesn't qualify anymore for the PTSD symptoms. And yeah, it's just to show that you can go after what you love and enjoy. And when you're able to access to your nervous system through various techniques, like there's not much more you can not achieve, but it's more like there's more peace and alignment that you can aim for, like in your day to day and in your career and life. Yeah, I found so this is Monadio. I found his story quite fascinating because every time I presented his case, people will be like, "Why would he want to sell ice cream if he's a Fortune 500 engineer?" And I was like, "No, you have no idea because he was doing what was expected of him. So now, he's finally doing what he loves. So it's all about getting into alignment because what's meant for like success is different for each person. So it's all about finding your own joy and your own success in a way that's meaningful to you.
Yeah, you're so right about that. Where can people sign up?
I can leave I can leave the link. And so we currently have a wait list. I recently just have my book launched. It's called How to Get Over Your Shit. So if
Yeah,
anyone's interested, yeah, it's a great book to look through other people's experiences, overcoming abuse and trauma, and also with client stories and practical tools that could help to heal the pain and the suffering. So this could be a good startup point.
wonderful. Thank you so much for joining the Speak Up Against Stigma podcast. It was wonderful having you here today.
Thank you, Kristy.
Thank
It's a pleasure to be here.